This is why, church, I don't know where you are. Are you struggling with unbelief? Just think about this question. Am I stressed? If I'm stressed, why am I stressed? What is stressing my life? Maybe today you don't have stress, but in the last 1 week or 1 month, what are the stressors I'm carrying? Think about your stress. Think about what part of this can't God handle? What part of my stress is too big for God? Actually speaking, there's nothing. But I'm struggling to believe that. Then you need to deal with unbelief this morning. This is why the writer of Hebrews, who's talking to strong Christian believers, says this: God's promise of entering His rest still stands. So we ought to tremble with fear that some of you might fail to experience it. What is he saying? None of us tremble in fear. We think it's normal. Stress for us and not living in the rest of God has become normal to the believer. Instead, what does the scripture say? Tremble with fear. Let it be like, oh my God, why am I so stressed? There's something wrong in my life. Verse 1 says, tremble. Then verse 11 says, be diligent, be intentional, be so focused to enter that rest, lest anyone fail to the same example of disobedience. Can I tell you one thing? If you don't enter the rest that God has for you, you won't go to hell. Things that send us to hell, we get very scared about. I get very scared about. So those things that take us to hell, we are very focused on, obeying the laws of this and doing that. But the place of unbelief, we'll happily keep it. Because I'm not going to hell. But do you want to be so miserable on earth? Then no one wants to talk to you. But you won't go to hell. Then why is God saying you tremble with fear if you're not in rest? If you're not going to hell, why would He say that? Because God created us to function from rest. Each one of you and me are created to function from rest. That is why He says, if you do not function the way I created you, you will malfunction. Why on earth did God throw the 4th commandment to the people? Thou shalt keep the Sabbath. And many of us keep the Sabbath just like in those days, thinking it's this. If I have to keep this, I have to go to church. If I don't go to church, finished. I'm breaking the 10 commandments. Why would God say that? As I've said, always know His ways, not His works. Why would He command them to keep the Sabbath? Again, the answer is very simple. Because that is the way we are designed. If we don't function the way we are created, we will break down. How many of you know there is more sickness today than at any other time in this planet? Why? But we're making advancements. Technology is changing. Everything is getting nicer and better. People are getting worse. Why? We don't function from rest. Why do you think God gave a sun and a moon? I believe nature shows us, guys, you can't work 24 hours. When the sun goes down, you must rest. Because if you don't rest, you will break. You will malfunction. God is saying you must rest. Our advancement can sometimes be the reason why we break down, because we don't follow His system. His system is you need to rest. Now please understand, now many of us resting means no work. Am I right? When you said you want to take a rest from stress, what is it? Leave everything behind. I don't want to work. I don't want to do anything. That is not true. In fact, when it says enter into the Sabbath of the Lord, and as the Lord stopped working, you must also stop working. What He's saying is stop this stressful work you do. Stop trying to, build your castles in the sand. Stop working like this. Come and chill with God. But Jesus said, come to me, all you are weary and heavy laden, and I will give you rest. See, firstly, this rest cannot be man-made. Our man-made rest is very different to this rest God is talking about. That's why I said, we have all sorts of systems for our rest, but I said it lasts maybe 3 days, maybe a week, but then we're back to stress. So that's not what God is talking about. He's saying, come into my rest. This rest He's calling us to is His rest. And in fact, Jesus says, come to me, all you who are weary and heavy laden, and I will give you rest. My yoke is easy and the burden I give you is light. It's not going to weigh you down, but I am giving you a burden. You have to do something since you're mine. You're not on this earth just to sleep. See, we need to understand that. See, we find rest in who He is. And when He says stop your work on the Sabbath, it's stop working from a place of unbelief. See, today we need to look at what Jesus did for us. Like God rested when He said everything is good. And what did He say? He rested. Today we need to see what Jesus said. It is finished. It is done. Therefore I shall rest. I shall do work, but not out of stress. And in that place of rest, we continue to see how great and big He is. I'm telling you, this Sunday service is not enough to break unbelief that keeps bombarding us 7 days a week. Can I tell you, this break that I told you about somebody gave me? The greatest time from that rest was when Dinu and I just spent time with the Lord. And I just felt the peace, I felt the stress leaving, and I felt the Lord saying, Dinesh, stop stressing, you can do all things through Jesus who strengthens you. Stop thinking like this. And that's where rest came back here. And He's saying we have to make this rest. Because if you don't make this rest, you are going to suffer. And it is not His plan to make you suffer.